Hey everyone, I am your astrologer Wonder Girl, helping you to live in tune with the natural cycles of the moon. This is your astrology horoscope for the new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius, which happens on Saturday, December 4th, 2021 at 2:43 a.m. Eastern Time, or Friday, December 3rd, 2021 at 11:43 p.m. Pacific Time. Now, what I think is going on at this time is that we are adjusting our beliefs to be higher about ourselves, our lives, and our world, and therefore getting a lot of positive messages from Spirit about our next steps. But even though we're getting a lot of positive messages from Spirit about our next steps, we're a bit confused because the messages are so different than what we thought they would be and coming in so fast. And not only are we so confused about that, but I think we're also a bit upset that our physical external reality does not currently match these insights that Spirit is giving us as well, which is creating a lot of frustration within our own selves and possibly arguments with other people as we more fully figure out what's going on with us and more fully figure out how to adjust our situations in a better, more divine way. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. If you want to hear more about that, please stay tuned because we're going to hop into it right now. In order to get started, what I like to do first is, of course, place on the chart what it is that I'm referring to so that you can see it and follow along with me. So let's go ahead and let's do that now. This video is for the new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius, which is what this chart is set for. How do I know that? Well, we've got the moon and the sun right here conjunct, which means they're at the same exact degree in the same exact sign. And when the moon and the sun come together like this, that's a new moon. I know that this is an eclipse because the new moon is in the same sign here as the south node. And the nodal axis, the south node, is one of the things that determines where eclipses occur and where the sun and the moon and the earth all align. So this is how I know that it is a solar eclipse here. Okay. What does this mean? Well, new moons are all about new beginnings, new energies, and fresh starts. Eclipses make that a big deal, very significant, a significant new start or fresh energy, and one that we've been working towards for quite some time, especially since the nodes first entered this sign about a year and a half ago. Okay, what is this big new beginning or fresh energy that it is that we're getting? Sagittarius, because that's the sign that all of this is in. What is Sagittarius about? Well, Sagittarius is about our belief systems being correlated to Jupiter and being the sign of religion. So what that means to me is that what we are getting at this new moon solar eclipse in Sag, one of the things that we're getting are major new belief systems about ourselves, our lives, our world, and what it is that we are currently experiencing. Okay, what kind of beliefs are these? These aren't just any old beliefs. Sagittarius, being correlated to Jupiter and being a fire sign, is optimistic and is more abundant and more empowering. So these just aren't any old beliefs that we're getting about ourselves, our life, and our world. These are beliefs that are more empowering, where we believe in more empowered and abundant things about ourselves and our abilities in our world and what it is that we are able to create from here on out. Okay, not only that, but I should also note, I do see Sagittarius as a sign that is very connected to God, being the sign of religion, and very connected to the universe, Spirit, and the angels and the higher realms. So not only is this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius about us getting major, new, more abundant, empowered beliefs about ourselves, our lives, and our world, more than we've had ever before, at least in recent memory. It's also about us too, as a result of these higher beliefs, becoming more in tune and more connected to God, the spiritual realms, and the divine. Okay, and the reason why I believe that is because God only believes good things about ourselves, and God only wants good things for us as individuals. So when we get our beliefs higher and more empowered, we tune in to a higher frequency, if you will, or awaken to a higher, more abundant spiritual frequency as well. So that is to me why the two are correlated here. Not only that, but other things that you typically hear me say about Sagittarius is that Sagittarius is also about new and better experiences here, manifesting in our lives in more of an external way as well. So I also think that's what's indicated here by this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius. Better beliefs about ourselves and our world, way better beliefs with this being an eclipse, and very empowered beliefs that are putting us now more in touch with God, Spirit, the divine, and a higher power, and are also therefore helping us to manifest externally new and better things than what we've been experiencing over the course of the past few years and I think decades, and especially some new and better chapter in life that I've been talking about in all my videos for a while. Okay, so that to me is what's going on here. But before I move any further, there are a few things that I want to explain. And I think the first thing I want to explain is that this to me has to be done in a certain order, or is meant to be a progression of some sort that I'm going to be really picky about here. This isn't we get a new chapter in life and better things happen, and then all of a sudden we get better beliefs, and then all of a sudden we connect to God. No, I think this solar eclipse is very, very, very particular. What has to happen first is that we have to get better beliefs about ourselves and our lives and connect to God, spirit, and a higher power. And then the new external blessings and the new external better situations will start to manifest in our lives, not the other way around. So please do keep that in mind as we move forward. The beliefs have to come first before we start to see our external environment and reality change. Okay. Because that's all I want to say there for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go backwards in time before I go forwards now, in order to give you the context of this time period and how we got here, and of why this is now a thing that's coming up in order to be worked through and experienced. Okay, and to go give you the context for this time period, I'm actually going to go back a lot. And I'm going to go back to about this time last year. I'm going to go back to this time last year because this time last year was the last and the first time that we've had a solar eclipse in Sagittarius, which this one is related to and is connected to than what we've had in a while. So that's why I'm going to go back there. This may take me a little bit since I'm going to cover about 12 or so months. So hang in there with me. If you are not interested in hearing this portion of the video, even though I highly recommend it this time around since it connects to the eclipse, then just know that you can skip ahead in the video. Lately, I've been putting the timestamps in the description box and chapters in the video. So please feel free to skip ahead if you're just not interested, which is totally fine. Totally fine. Okay. But I'm going to hop into it now. And to hop into the context of this time period, I'm going to go back to that last new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius this time last year, which is what, December of 2020. Okay, what was that all about? Well, it was a solar eclipse in Sagittarius, which to me is a lot about new beginnings, new chapters. So what I think happened December of last year is that we started to step into some new, different, and better chapter in life, away from a lot of the hardships of the past. I should also note too that I do believe many of us were kind of accidentally tricked into this new and better chapter in life by a series of events that happened in the months prior, possibly around October of 2020, which was Libra season. Okay. When some interesting things were going on there. Okay. Regardless though, a new chapter in life came in December of 2020. That was better for us. Then we get to the next month after that, which was a new moon in Capricorn, about the middle degrees of Capricorn, in January of 2021. What was that? Well, that was a little bit of a difficult new moon because of the aspects it was making at the time, and because of Capricorn can be a bit tough. So what was that about? Well, in my opinion, that was about some roadblocks coming up to this new and better chapter in life that had recently started to arrive. What were those roadblocks that came up? I believe at that time it was low self-esteem. I also believe it was self-sabotaging tendencies and feelings of victimization, especially after what we had been through for many months and years prior. Not only that, but for some of you too, it could have been addictions to certain things as well that were preventing us from moving forward. Not only was that the issue, but we also had another new moon a month later here in the middle of Aquarius in February of this year as well, which was also a bit difficult. What was the difficulty there? Well, not only was it the personal stuff, the low confidence and self-esteem and self-sabotage and feelings of victimization, but now in February, it was other people. There were other people and experiences and things in our lives that were still in it, that were not meant to be in it for this new chapter in life, that were bringing us down and holding us back, that we needed to cut out here. That was also hard. Because both of those things were challenges, both of those months, we then realized throughout February that we needed to quit it. We needed to quit these things that were bringing us down and these relationships, and cut these things out of our life so that we could move forward. And I believe we started to do that. And because we started to do that in March of this year, at that next new moon in Pisces, we then started to release these old things and heal more from these old negative experience and beliefs that were bringing us down so that we could feel more at peace. Okay, that then leads me to the next lunar month, which was the new moon in Aries here in April of this year, which is the first sign of the zodiac and the start of the astrological new year. What is that all about? That was all about finally the new chapter in life that really did come in December, finally starting to be seen a little bit more so that we could experience it. Not only was that what April was about too, but it was also about us negotiating a little bit more of this new chapter in life in the terms of engagement and what it would look like and how things would come together, which I also believe that we did. Because we were able to do that, we then get to the next month, which was the new moon in Taurus right here in the middle of May of this year, 2021. What is that about? Taurus is a fixed sign. It's about sustaining things that Aries started. So what that means to me is that in May, we tried to sustain the new chapter in life that was now starting to show itself a little bit more after kicking some of these old things so that it could grow a little bit better and a little bit bigger. But as we started to sustain this new chapter in life a little bit more, I think that we ran into some roadblocks that came up. That's because we had a lunar eclipse in Sagittarius right around that time, while Mercury went retrograde in the sign of Gemini. What were the roadblocks there? Well, I think the roadblocks were still mindsets that it is that we had that wasn't quite right, not quite a right way of thinking about this new chapter in life that we were in. Not only was it a mindset thing, but I also think there was something from the past that hadn't been communicated properly, probably pertaining to something that happened in February that we were also trying to cut out of our lives as well. That was preventing us from moving forward. So what I think happened then at that next new moon, which was a solar eclipse in Gemini here in June, is that we went back to recommunicate these things with these people that we were trying to cut out of our life or to adjust in order to move forward so that we could get those things on a better, more peaceful, more released trajectory. Not only in June did we go back to recommunicate some of these things, but we also tried to rework some of our thought processes and mindsets within our own soul so that we can move forward. And I do believe that we were able to eventually achieve that, which then helped us to more fully get familiar with this new chapter in life. Not only did it help us with that, but it also helped us with something the next month here, which is July of this year, 2021, with a new moon in Cancer. What is that all about? Well, Cancer is a lot about grounding something and building more of a foundation for it. So what that means to me is that in July of this year, we then began to ground this new chapter in life now that we had fixed more things so that it can more firmly take root and hold and last with us more long-term in a better way, which I also believed that we accomplished. That then leads us to the next new moon a month later here, the middle degrees of Leo in August of this year, 2021. What is that about? Well, Leo is about happiness. It's a lot about pleasure. It's a lot about joy and having fun. So I think what happened in August is that we started to think about how we could have more fun in this new chapter of life and fully enjoy it and connect with it as we move forward, so that the new life didn't just exist, but so that it really kind of set us on fire. And I do believe that throughout the month of August, we were able to come up with a way to be happy in this different experience in life and to begin to enjoy it or figure out ways to enjoy it. That then leads me to the next new moon, which happened a month later here, the middle degrees of Virgo in September of this year. What is that about? Well, Virgo is a lot about daily routine and daily practice, doing something day in and day out. And I think that's what we tried to do in September. We tried to take this happier way of going about life and these things we realized that would make us happy in this new space in life and do them more consistently on the day-to-day in a more routine way as we move forward. But as we tried to be happier in this new chapter in life and do more happier things that we like on the day-to-day, I think we started to run into roadblocks around this time, especially because that's when Mercury went retrograde again here in the sign of Libra. Okay, what were the challenges that came up? Well, Libra is an air sign, just like the last Mercury retrograde in Gemini. So I think part of the challenges here is that something still with our mindset was off, preventing us from being happy on the day-to-day, making us feel guilty for enjoying life and for having fun with it. Not only was something still about our mindset a little bit off, but I think too there was something off with our division of time and resources. The division of our time and resources was just not simply set up for more happiness too. That was standing in the way. And not only that, but I still think it was something with relationships that was not where it needed to be as well, preventing us from enjoying life. That was very hard. Because that was hard, we then the next month at that new moon in Libra, which was conjunct this Mercury retrograde in October, start to fix all those things, start to fix more of our mindset, more of our relationships, and more of our division of time and resources so that we could be happier in this different space of life that's trying really darn hard to arrive. And I do think that we eventually did that. That then leads me to the next new moon, which was in Scorpio here in November, which was last month. What is that about? Well, Scorpio is a lot about change and transformation, especially within our soul. So what that indicates to me is that in November, we started to finally feel more changed and transformed within our soul, and more changed and transformed within our soul to embrace this new chapter in life. Now that we have fixed more of the road blockages that were preventing us from being in it and from enjoying it. Not only at that new moon in Scorpio did we start to feel changed, like we could embrace more of a new chapter in life, but we also felt happier as a result and more empowered too, because Scorpio has a lot to do with power and strength. Not only that, but Scorpio to me also does have to do with external change with relationships and money. So not only in November did we finally just start to feel happier and more empowered as individuals because we're kicking all these things that are not meant for the new chapter in life and that we don't enjoy, but we also felt that because we're more empowered, we now can make changes externally with relationships and money to be even better, to be more of what we want them to be and more in alignment now with this new and better chapter in life as we move forward. Okay. And I believe that we started to do that. But as we started here to make more external changes within relationships and money to align with now this better, happier chapter of life that is coming in, I think we ran into another little bit of an issue, especially at that full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus 2 weeks ago, right about here, also in the month of November. What was the roadblock there? Well, I think this change was coming at us too fast and too strong with all this relationship and money stuff that was going on, and therefore overwhelming us and kind of knocking us a little bit off center. And because all of this change was coming on too fast and too strong, and I think in unpredictable ways that we weren't planning on, I think we realized we had to slow these situations down because it was just too much for us to compute, and that we had to be a little bit more sensible about things as they move forward. And I do believe that over the course of the past 2 weeks, since that we have done that, we have slowed whatever change was started to go on in our lives with relationships and money way down, almost to what feels like a complete halt. And we have slowed a lot of these things down so that this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius, for which this video is for, we can get the right perspective on them, and we can get the right beliefs about them, and we can get the right way to handling them. That's not based on fear. That's not based on self-sabotage. That's not based on an old mindset. That's not based on lack of self-esteem, but that's based on an empowered, abundant perspective and God's divine truth for ourselves and for our lives, so that we can go back to these changes that were started a few weeks ago and do them better and do them differently and do them better to more fully and finally end an old chapter in life that's been trying to leave for a while and begin more of a new one in a more realistic, permanent, and long-lasting, and eventually more solid way from here on out. Okay, and that's it. Because that's it. Excuse me. I'm now just going to repeat all of those things one more time without, very, very briefly, without the astrological jargon, so you can get a better sense of what I think is going on here. So let me do that now. What I think is going on at this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius is that we're really reflecting, do I want to say, on some recent changes that have started to occur in our lives to more fully end an old chapter of life and set us up for a new and better one. And we're reflecting on these events that have recently occurred and have not yet quite completed, so that we can get a better understanding of them and a better perspective of them that's higher and that's more in tune with God's truth, so that when we do go back to these changes, we can do them in a healthier, more divine way, more meant for us, in order to fully bring things together in the ways that it is that we need. Okay. Is there anything that I want to say? There is a thing that I want to say. I think now is the time to do it. Usually I wait to give you these messages at the end. And you know what? Knowing me, I'll probably say it again at the end. But I want to do it now for a minute. And I want to take a minute to reflect on everything that I just said, because I do go through that kind of quickly. And to have us think a little bit critically about that. Okay. And I want to do that here by looking at, again, this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius happening now this month, of which this video is for. That is a lot about our belief systems, right? It's been a lot about adjusting our beliefs. And because this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius, for which this video is for, is about our belief systems, and because we had the same eclipse last year, this time, which is about similar things, what that indicates to me is that really this whole year, even though maybe I haven't said it like this in my videos, is that really this whole year, from last December of 2020 to December of 2021, the whole issue has really come down to beliefs. The whole issue with why we're about to begin a new chapter in life, but we're not, is really, at the end of the day, the fact that our beliefs have been out of sorts. Okay. Why would I say that? Well, yes, of course, because the eclipse is bookend. We had a Sagittarius eclipse last year, this time, now we have one this year, but also because if you look at everything I've just said about this past year, right when we got to January and February, what were the roadblocks? The roadblocks were low self-esteem and confidence. The roadblocks were also feelings of victimization, feeling like you're always going to be a victim, addictions and self-sabotage, and keeping old things in life that are not meant for the new chapter in life. And really, when it comes down to it, even though I used other words to say that, it's all about the beliefs. Because what is low self-esteem? It's a belief that you are not good enough, that you are not good enough for good things to come into your life. What is feelings of victimization? It's a belief that something bad is always going to happen to you, that the same bad thing that happened again is going to happen, that happened in the past is going to happen again. What is it? Having someone or something in your life that is not good for you? It's a belief that you do not deserve better. So I want to be clear here. That's been the issue really all along, preventing the new chapter in life from coming into the picture, is our beliefs that this new moon is helping us to correct in a big, major way. And once we correct the beliefs about ourselves and about our world and about our lives and about our situation, then funny enough, the new things start to come together and the different chapter in life starts to occur in the way that it's been trying to all along. Okay, so I want to be clear about that. Another thing that I want to say about this too, again, it's kind of early to get into all this, but it is an eclipse. What else does this mean? If beliefs were our problem the whole time, and if we did not have abundant beliefs, or as abundant as they should have been a year ago, then what does that mean about the past 12 months? Well, what that means about the past 12 months is that for some of you, something new and better has been trying to come into your life for 12 months now, at least, maybe longer, since last October of 2020, and maybe even for a few years prior. Something new and better has been trying to come into your life. But what that means is some of you, not all of you, may have rejected something good in between December and October of last year, 2020, right? That's what that was. Some of you may have had something good happen to you then. Could have been a job thing, could have been a personal relationship thing, could have been a family thing, could have been whatever. Some of you could have had something very, very good happen to you at the end of last year that you could have rejected. Not because it wasn't meant for you, but because you didn't believe you were worthy of it and that you were deserving of it and weren't in touch with God's spirit universe and the highest divine truth for your life, which is only going to want good things for you. Okay, so that's what that means for some of you, that you now, this new moon this year, December 2021, may now be realizing, oh shit, oh shit, there was something that went on last year that was actually very good for me that I rejected because I did not think that I was good enough, that maybe now I need to circle back to or to learn from to see what is going on there, okay? That's part of what that means. Okay. What else may this mean too? Not only can it mean that, but if you saw the way the rest of the year went, it could have also meant too that you actually did the opposite, that you actually bought something new into your life at various points throughout this year. I'm talking December 2020. I'm talking Aries season after that new moon in Aries, April of 2021, maybe even some things here in Cancer and Leo season, August of this year as well, 2021, you may have actually done the opposite. And instead of rejecting things, brought new things into your life. And now that you're getting more of the divine truth and beliefs and better beliefs, you may realize that you were still settling too low, that you were still settling for less, that the new things you brought into your life this year are still not meant for you, are better than what you've been getting the past few years prior to this, but still not the highest potential, the highest, best option for you from here on out, that all of a sudden you may be starting to realize at this new moon solar eclipse, shoot, I need to let that thing go. I need to let that thing go and instead of move it forward. So I think that those are the very early points that I want to mention here as well. Before I move forward, that really this whole time, the problem was that your beliefs were too low. And because the beliefs were too low and not abundant, some of you rejected things all this year and a little bit last year that were good for you that now you need to go get or figure out. And some of you did the opposite and didn't reject things, but bought too many things in that were not good for you that now you need to cut out and come to terms with as well over the course of the next few weeks, really, while Venus goes retrograde, in order to kind of bring more things together. Okay, so that's what I'm going to say there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into more of the specifics of this new moon solar eclipse itself so that you can get more of the details of what this energy is going to be like and how it's going to play out. And to do that, I'm going to go into the specific astrological aspects that the new moon solar eclipse is going to be making. So let me do that now. Let's first place it on the chart. Here's the eclipse again, because we've got the moon and the sun here in Sagittarius next to the south node. Okay. What is this about? Sorry, I need to catch myself up here. What is this about? Just to remind you all, it's about us getting new, better, more empowered beliefs about our life that are more connected and in tune with a higher frequency, God, spirit, universe, and the divine, that is helping alert us to more of what needs to be done here in order to end a different chapter, old chapter in life and bring in a new one, okay? What's the first alignment I want to talk about? I want to talk about the fact that this new moon here is conjunct Mercury, as you can see it here in this chart, and very, very close to gray. What is that about? Well, Mercury is a lot about communication. It's the planet of communication here, and communication, thinking or talking. Okay, now what kind of communication is this? For some of you, this is going to be communication with actual people in your life. And there's always that going on. But in particular, what I think this is communication from God, from spirit, with this being in Sagittarius, in this kind of alignment. We are receiving not only higher beliefs at this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius that are in tune with the divine, but the divine is speaking back to us, because Mercury is what? The messenger of the gods, right? That's the Greek mythology behind it. Mercury, I think, being correlated to Hermes or something. So what is going on here? Sorry, just to set it up here, is that at the beginning of this, at the new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius, we're adjusting our beliefs to be more on God's frequency and more on a spiritual frequency with spirit in the universe. And because now finally we're opening up to a higher frequency, God, spirit, and the angels are recognizing that we are open to a higher frequency now, and they're talking back to us. Hey, why don't you do this? What about this? You know that thing you rejected a while back? Maybe you need to go get that. Hey, you know that thing that maybe you bought into your life? Well, maybe that wasn't built on the best belief systems, and maybe that needs to change. It's God giving you a lot of these messages here. I want to note too, they're not small messages. I know I just said they were a lot, but I need to explain why. These are not small messages that you are getting from spirit. These are big ones. Why? Because Mercury is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system. So these are not little messages. It's not all of a sudden God, spirit, universe, and the angels saying, excuse me, I just want to tell you a little bit thing about your life. No, it's God, spirit, and the angels running us over saying, oh my gosh, I've been waiting to talk to you. I've been waiting to talk to you since at least last year, and you haven't been listening to me, and I've been wanting to be your friend, and like, let me tell you all this stuff. Okay, so they're really extremely big messages from spirit that are downloading and from the higher frequencies to awaken us to other possibilities and other visions that are actually better for us and more divine that we did not see before. Okay, I should note, I do like this. I tend to think of Sagittarius as a very lucky sign, as a very optimistic sign. And again, I tend to think of God, spirit, angels, and the universe as being on our side, as only wanting the best for us from here on out. So I do think of this as a very good thing. But even though this is a very good thing, I do have to note here, this is a bit of a challenge. It's a bit of a challenge because Mercury is in Sagittarius, which is a sign it does not like to be in. And when planets are in signs they don't like to be in, they don't function quite normal and they don't function quite right. So that's a little hard. And not only that, but also because this new moon and Mercury, therefore Mercury is in a square here to Neptune as well. And a square is a hard aspect. And Neptune also does not get along with Mercury. There are two things that Mercury doesn't get along with: Sagittarius and Pisces. And Neptune, because Neptune correlates to Pisces. And look, here they are bombarding Mercury. So even though I love this. I love that we're getting higher, more empowered, more abundant beliefs, and that we're open to spirit and higher frequencies, and that spirit, God, and the angels are talking back to us, and that they have a lot to say and are not shutting up and just keep on going. And speaking truth over our lives and what's next. But even though I like it, I think it's coming on too fast, if you will. Still, I think it's coming on too fast. I think it's coming on too strong. All these messages from spirit running us over. Not only do I think they're coming on too fast and too strong, but I also believe as well that they're coming in weird ways. You know, sometimes when God speaks in a little bit of a different language than we do. And God speaks from even more of a higher perspective than we do. So not only are these things that God is telling us coming on too strong and too fast, but I think they're also messages that are so foreign. That's it. That's what I need to say. There are messages that are so foreign, especially because Sagittarius has to do with travel, long distance travel. These are also messages that are so foreign that we have never thought about before in our lives ever. So I think, or at least in a very long time. So I think that that's also part of the challenges here too. So many messages from spirit, strong, fast, overwhelming, and spirit is telling me things I've never thought about before, at least not in that way. Not only is this a challenge too, and I think this is what I was just trying to get to, but that I didn't say clear enough, is that these messages from God are coming in weird ways. You know, God doesn't call you up on the phone like a friend, and spirit doesn't call you up on the phone and say, hello, this is God and spirit speaking. Can we talk to Jessica today and Brian to tell them what's going on? No, sometimes when spirit speaks, it speaks through feelings. It speaks through inklings. Spirit speaks through synchronicities. Spirit speaks through a stranger you met on the street, or a conversation with someone you haven't seen in a while. So not only is the difficulty here about this alignment that God is speaking too strong, too fast, so many messages that are hard for us to compute and that are overwhelming us, and that God is speaking things that are so foreign to us over our lives that we hadn't really considered as before. But it's also too that these messages are coming in weird ways too. They're coming in packages that perhaps we're not used to tuning into on a regular and on a daily basis, which is very difficult. Okay. And because this is very difficult, what I think is going on here is that it's creating confusion. That's what happens when you get Mercury and not a great aspect and Neptune involved. It's creating a lot of confusion here. Why is it creating a lot of confusion? Well, because messages are coming so fast, right? And we're having difficulty integrating. When someone's telling you something very quickly, which I'm sometimes guilty of doing, when someone's telling you something very quickly and talking very fast and throwing a whole bunch of stuff at you, it's hard to really reflect on what that person is saying because it's just too much all at once, and it creates overwhelm. So I think there's confusion because, again, things are coming at us too fast that we don't have time to integrate. I think it's also creating confusion too, because whenever a higher frequency comes in, and whenever spirit speaks to us, it triggers lower beliefs, it triggers lower energies and entities that may be attached to us that are also not in alignment as well, that are doubts. It triggers doubts. Maybe that's a more practical way to put it. It's triggering doubts and fears and insecurities. Not only are we confused because of that, too strong, too fast, now we're triggered lower energies because this beautiful truth is filtering in. I think also as well, what's going on here too is uncertain of the message too, because the message is not coming to us through a phone call directly from God, but are coming to us from synchronicities. I think we're also worried that we're hearing the message wrong. Maybe God isn't telling me this. Maybe this is just me thinking me. Maybe this is just me making it up. Me pretending something is something it's not actually, I think there's also a lot of that is going on as well. That is very, very hard. That's leaving us somewhere in between. Is this God that's telling me this, or spirit, or is it not? Am I just making this up, and am I just going crazy? And why is God telling me this? And what does it mean? And I don't know, and it's too fast and it's too much, and all of that. Not only can this create confusion, but it can also create a lot of sensitivity. Neptune in Pisces is very sensitive. It can bring a lot of emotions too about all of these things. It can bring sadness at stuff that God is telling us that we have to leave behind here as well, or just a lot of sensitivity about what has yet to come, and can also make us quite exhausted. Okay. Now, do I think all of this stuff is eventually going to get worked out, the confusion? Yes, I do. Neptune recently went direct, and we are about to have a first quarter moon on Neptune here in Pisces a little over a week from now, about a week. So yeah, I do think this confusion is going to get cleared up, and we're going to be able to better discern what is God's truth and what are our thoughts. And we're going to be able to better integrate all of this stuff that God is saying in a more peaceful way. So I do think it's going to clear up, just not now. It's still going to take another week or two for that to happen, okay? This is creating a lot of confusion here, okay? Not only is this creating a lot of confusion because it hasn't cleared up yet, and it's not for another week or two, but it's also, I need to note, creating frustrations, a lot of frustrations here as well that could also be manifested externally, frustrations and anger here as well that could also come up. Why could we feel very frustrated and very angry? Well, maybe I'll look next. Here, because of Venus. I'm going to go here next because of Venus currently coming into a conjunction with Pluto as well at the same time. This is a very difficult alignment. Why is it difficult? Because Venus is slowing down, about to go retrograde in another week or two. And also because Pluto tends to also be difficult, bringing triggers, fears, and anxieties as well. So this is very difficult here, bringing, I want to say, frustration. And Pluto to me also brings anger. This can be anger at ourselves. But with Venus involved, this is also anger at relationships, Venus, and money, Venus, or the people and things involved with money sources as well. Why could we be very angry and frustrated and getting in fights with other people, or they be getting in fights with you if you're not picking fights with them? Well, I think there's a lot of anger and frustration that could be happening now with the external environment with relationships and money, because God is telling us something, and because we're sensing that our physical reality does not align now with the truth that God is telling us. And not only are we angry and upset because God is telling us something big, huge, massive messages, and it doesn't align with the way our current physical reality is, but also because we're kind of still doubting these messages that we're getting from Spirit. And we're also still kind of confused about these messages from Spirit at the same time that we know that they're kind of telling us that something is off. That's also quite hard here as well. Not only are we angry at ourselves and angry at people because God is telling us something so fast that's alerting us to something not right in our life that we kind of get, but that we're kind of confused about. But I think we're also a little bit frustrated as well because we don't know what to do with these insights, and we don't yet have the right strategy to put God's insights into action in order to effectively make change with these external circumstances as well. Okay, why don't we know how to put these things into action yet? Because not only is all this other stuff going on that I just mentioned, but this new moon in Sagittarius solar eclipse is also making a trine over here to Chiron and Aries. And Chiron is difficult, and Aries is the sign of action. It's the sign of doing things and moving things forward and making progress. So, and with Chiron and Aries, that's difficulty knowing what to do, and difficulty acting with precision and with certainty, which I typically think of as an Aries thing as well, which is very, very hard here. I think causing us to kind of spiral a little bit downwards. Not only is all this going on, God's speaking to us so much about our life and what needs to change in order to be alerted to in order to create something more divine, and it coming on too fast, too strong, and being confusing, and us doubting it, and therefore getting angry at ourselves and other people for things in our life that don't align with God's truth and that don't match. And not only do we not know what to do now that we're very frustrated, but I think there's also, how do I say this? But I think also we don't want to slow down. I think there's also a part of us that has so much emotion and so much feeling about what God is saying, about what's going on in our lives, that it's really hard for us to let up. It's really hard for us to detach from these situations in our life in order to think about them in a better way, in a more sensible way too. And the reason for that as well is because at the same time all of this is happening, we've got Mars here in Scorpio making a square over here to Jupiter and Aquarius. And while there are some good things about this alignment, Mars square Jupiter can bring rose-colored, I don't know if rose-colored glasses are quite the word, since there's a lot of frustrations going on here, but sometimes Jupiter square Mars can bring overexuberance, and I don't want to say impulsiveness, impatience, if we want to also consider Mars the planet of action, that I think is going on here, that's having things spiral a little bit out of control. Not only is that going on, but we've also got the new moon solar eclipse here, quincunx, Uranus and Taurus, and a quincunx is also a hard aspect, and Taurus is a lot about stability. So I think we're feeling very insecure and very unstable throughout this whole process as well. That's going on here. That's very difficult. And what I think really the message of this new moon solar eclipse is really all about is not to get, it's hard to do, but is not to get overwhelmed by all this stuff God is saying, and to not act out rashly, but to simply just wait and be patient. Instead of acting out rashly and causing arguments and fighting, the message of this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius is to simply wait and be patient. Why? Because again, the solar eclipse squares Neptune, and Neptune is the planet of being patient in a lot of ways, and that's where the first quarter moon is going to be. Okay. I think we really need to learn the message is to wait and be patient. What are we waiting on and being patient on? Well, I think we're waiting on ourselves, first of all, to attune to a higher frequency, to attune to God's frequency, and to better discern what God is saying. I think we need that time to do that so that we don't create confusion, then more confusion than there needs to be, and cross some wires. And so that we can make sure that when we do act, we're super certain about what God is saying. Not only do I think we need to wait at this new moon solar eclipse for us to just fully be ready to receive these insights from God and to understand them, but I think we also need to wait as well to more fully release old beliefs, especially because the solar eclipse is on the south node. It's not on the north node, which also brings eclipses. It's on the south node, which is about releasing things. So I think we also need to do that. We need to be patient and not initiate any actions so that we can wait to integrate more of what God is saying and to release the old lower beliefs and frequencies that are preventing us from getting on a higher frequency. Another thing too is I think we also need to wait as well for more messages from God and Spirit and the universe, and for God's Spirit and the universe to reveal even more things to us once we're open to receive them, in an even better way, so that we see in full and not in part, so that we see full and not in part and in piecemeal of what is actually needed here, and can see the bigger picture, which is what Sagittarius and Pisces are very good at doing, and are kind of meant to do. So I think that's also why we need to wait as well. Not only do we need to wait as well for God to give us more messages, but I think we also need to wait for God to work things out on our behalf in the spiritual realms, and for God to do some things for us without us doing as much effort, especially after everything we've done over the course of the past few years. Not only do we need to wait as well for God to kind of maneuver things for us, but I think we also need to wait too until God gives us the go ahead, and until God gives us the green light and spirit and universe and says, hey, now is the time. Now you're ready. Now is the time to tell this person this thing, or initiate that, or end this, and until God gives us the steps in order to do it as well. Okay. Because us slowing things down, which again was remember the full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus 2 weeks ago, was about slowing things down. Because us slowing things down and waiting and being patient and tuning into God is going to help fix all of those things I just said. It's going to prevent arguments. It's going to prevent frustrations. It's going to prevent you from jumping the gun too soon and creating unnecessary chaos and confusion. And it's going to help you so that when you do act to correct whatever is not in alignment with God's truth in your life, it's going to help you to act with more precision and with more certainty and with more spiritual help and more of the angels and God on your side in order to work more things out together. Okay. So I think that's what I want to say there. And I think that's all I had planned for the aspects. Because that's it, I'm now just going to repeat all of those things with the aspects I said one more time before I move forward. So let me do that now. What I think is going on at this time is that we're finally adjusting our beliefs about our life to be higher and to be more in tune with the divine and with a higher power and with God, universe, and spirit. And because at this new moon solar eclipse, we're doing that, God is, and spirit and the angels are so freaking thrilled that we're finally now open to hear them speak, that they are telling us so many things, like an old friend we haven't talked to in years. They're telling us so many things about our life and about what is next and about what God, spirit, and the angels see for us that is divine and that is inspired and that is meant for us from here on out. But even though God and spirit and the angels are telling us so many divine, beautiful truths about our lives and ourselves and our future, it's coming on way too fast. And it's coming on way too strong, and it's coming in weird ways. And the messages are things that we didn't expect, that it's then confusing us. And not only confusing us, but triggering old fears and insecurities and doubts and lower beliefs, and also making us doubt the message that we're hearing and where it's coming from. And because we sense that God is telling us something about our lives that needs to change, that hasn't quite happened yet, that we're kind of getting but kind of confused about, I think then we're really frustrated within ourselves, and also really frustrated and angry and upset at other people. And I think we're also very frustrated, angry, and upset at other people because they aren't getting the same messages that we're getting from God and spirit, or because they don't align with the messages that it is that we're getting. And we're also angry and frustrated too, not only because of that, but also because we don't know how to handle that. We don't know how to properly maneuver things. Well, we don't know how to properly deal with ourselves, work with our own selves. But we also don't know how to properly deal with our physical environment and our relationships and money either. And we're pushing things and rushing things or acting out in weird ways. That's spiraling things out of control and bringing a lot of instability and insecurity. And because something very, very good, we've somehow managed to turn into something, a huge mess. Because that's going on, I think what needs to happen is that we need to continue to slow down our situations and to stop them, so that, and to be patient with them, so that we can more fully release old beliefs, receive what God is saying and spirit, get even more messages from God and spirit, and then proceed when God tells us to, after God has worked things out in the spiritual realms in a healthier way, that's actually going to be better for us from here on out. Okay. And that's it. I think that's what this is all about here. Now, there are a few points that I want to mention that I didn't feel like I said clear enough. Sure. What are those points? And maybe some of you got this from what I said, but maybe some of you didn't. So I think I want to be clear about it now. What is God telling us, first of all? God is telling us what, in spirit and universe, put whatever word you want there. I just like to use God. I'm just more familiar with using God, so that's the word I use. But if you want to use goddess, spirit, universe, angels, do that. Just substitute it for the words I'm using, because that's what I mean, a higher power of some sort. Okay. So what do I think that God, spirit, angels, goddess, universe, the higher power is telling us at this time? I think God is telling us at this time about what is meant for us right now in our lives and in the future that's higher and more divine with us. And when God tells you things, when spirit tells you things, when a higher frequency tells you something, especially that comes from such a pure and a true and a pristine place, which is what I think these messages that we're getting from spirit are, anything that is not in alignment with this truth cannot stand. Where there is light, there cannot be darkness. And I think that's the point that I want to mention to you here. That's really the point of friction. And at this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius, is that we are tuning into God and to a higher frequency, a more divine frequency that's giving us all these beautiful messages about our life and about what's next. But these beautiful messages that we're getting about our life and what's not next are not only about our life and what's next, but because they are about that and so pristine, they're also about things that are currently in our life that do not align with the God-given truth, that do not align with the divine, pristine, sincere truth of what is next. And I think us feeling that tension, I'm seeing the God truth about myself and about the world and about the future and about what's next, but it's not manifesting in the physical yet, and things in my physical are still blocking that. There's tension, there's anger at ourselves, and there's anger at other people. Why aren't you doing what I feel you should be doing? Why aren't you aligned yet in this way? Why are you still in my life? Why are you not in my life? Why haven't I done this? There's a lot of, I think, anger and frustration that is going on there. That's really the truth of what's causing it. Not only is what's causing the anger and the frustration at this new moon solar eclipse that God is speaking higher truths in our lives that are alerting us to things that cannot shine in the light of this truth that now need to change or be gotten rid of in our life, that haven't changed and aren't gotten rid of yet. But I think the frustration as well is also that fact complicated by our own lower beliefs and by our own lower fears and by our own lower doubts. So I think that's what I want to clarify for you. It's multiple fold, twofold, manyfold. There's a lot of things going on here, but it's in particular, it's both the confusion and the arguments and the frustration and the instability and the insecurity and all the problems that are happening in this new moon solar eclipse are because God is speaking things over our lives, for our future, that do not align with where we currently are. That's hard. And not only because of that, but also because part of us deep down is still doubting what God is telling us and is still afraid to listen to God and to spirit and to intuition and to 100% fully give ourselves over to that and to trust our intuition and to trust our spiritual sight above all else, especially when things aren't seen on the reality and the day-to-day of what God is speaking to us. Okay, so that's the issue. So it's twofold. It's one thing. It's one thing when God tells you something and your present doesn't match the God-given vision, when your reality doesn't match the spiritual sight. That's one thing. That's one thing, and that's frustrating in itself, right? Oh shoot, God told me something and now this doesn't align, I got to change something. But what's even more frustrating is that when God tells you something and a part of you knows it's true, but then another part of you doesn't. So then that's a whole thing. It's like, what do I do? I want to do what God is telling me to do through this vision, but I also don't. And now I'm working cross purposes. Do you see this? And now there's a part of you, some part of you is working to create these better, higher experiences in your life, while another part of you is undercutting all of this progress that it is that you're making. Okay. And I think it's both of what's going on here. Not only is that going on too, but because, to talk about a manyfold, the thirdfold, not only is that the problem as well, because God is telling us things and our reality doesn't align and we partially believe but partially don't. But because we partially believe and partially don't, the problem is that we're cutting off the channel to God prematurely before it's fully spoken to us. And trying to act on half prophecies or act on half visions or act on half of the conversation. The last half of a sentence matters sometimes. You know, if someone says, I'm going to the Kroger, and then you don't understand it's the Kroger on the other side of town instead of the Kroger right next to you, then you go to the wrong, you know, sometimes the end of the sentence matters. And I think that that's also another part of the issue here. A whole lot of issues here going on. Okay. Spirit's telling us something pristine, which is good, but we're frustrated because our reality doesn't align with what God is saying. Not only are we frustrated because the reality doesn't align with what God is saying, but also because we kind of believe it, we kind of doubt it, and therefore we're working at cross purposes in order to manifest God's thing, but we're also not listening really to the whole story of what God has to say and also kind of misinterpreting it a little bit, which is then causing confusion on top of confusion on top of confusion, and miscommunications and arguments in all the ways coming at you in the weirdest places. Okay. But it's also creating too, and I think this is key, a lot of flip-flopping here is going on. A lot of weird situations with relationships in your life, people telling you one thing and then backing out and telling you another. They told you one thing 3 weeks ago, and then now they're backing out and they're telling you another thing now. And then right after they tell you another thing now, 2 days from now, Sunday, Monday, December 5th and 6th, and they're going to tell you another thing. It can create a lot of flip-flopping here, because some people that you're dealing with, or you may be these people, want something good and see God's truth, but then don't believe you're worthy of the highest stuff. And then one day be on board with what God wants, and then the next day change your mind and revert back. Okay. It can create a lot of weird situations here. And because it can create a lot of weird situations here, they're not pleasant. Again, sorry, I keep repeating, but I'm trying to add a little bit more detail here because this is such a complex new moon solar eclipse. And because people are not being straight with you, and because you're not being straight with people, and not on purpose, they don't know they're doing it, but because there's a lot of internal conflict, that's why there again is the need to slow down. You need to slow down so you can finish hearing what God is saying and stop undercutting God's purpose and be more clear-headed about these things that are going on. Okay. And there's also a need to slow down too, to get yourself right and to let other people get right. You know, there's a need to slow down so that you don't make other people's lives miserable for no reason. And there's a need to cut other people who are being crazy with you down too, to say, oh, okay, you're flip-flopping with me. Come back to me in a week. Okay. Come back to me in a week, 2 weeks. This is crazy. There's also a need to do that too. Not only for you to slow yourself down to listen to God, but if you're dealing with someone else who's being weird with you, there's a need for you to slow them down as well. And to say, I don't want to, don't jerk me around like this. Okay. Let's just wait it off. Or if not a need to slow other people down, then there's also possibly a need to just be patient with other people and to know that what is eventually going to happen with your situations will probably be very different than what they appear to be right now once we more fully attune to God's messages and the higher frequency and let the angels work. Okay. So I think that's what I want to say there. Now, what does that look like in reality? Like, to give you some examples, what this could indicate. I did give you a little bit of an example at the beginning of this video. But to circle back on that, what does that mean? It means that some of you over the course of the past few weeks in particular, since that new moon in Scorpio, but possibly even before that, some of you could have brought new things into your life, new jobs, new relationships, new money sources, new homes, things like that. Some of you could have bought some new things into your life. And what could happen is that now all of a sudden at the solar eclipse, God could be speaking to you and saying, hey, that's not actually meant for you. That was based on a lower belief and not my highest truth for you. And now that needs to change. You need another job. You need another job. Maybe you need to move again to somewhere different that this time is going to be better for you. Maybe you need to get out of that relationship and get into another one, or not get into one at all, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be another one, but God could be whispering to you about that. And then you could be very frustrated of like, oh gosh, am I hearing God wrong? I just changed jobs. I just got this home, like, am I hearing God wrong? And how do I bring everything together? And can make a lot of anger that this job isn't working and that the boss isn't for you and that the other person doesn't get it and isn't listening to God's messages. It can bring a lot of that and a lot of confusion too. Are you hearing in yourself, whether you're hearing God properly or not? That can be a challenge that you're just going to need to wait and to be patient on as the tension calms down, and to not make any bold moves on until you know 100% that this is what God is saying and wants for you. Okay. If it's not that, perhaps it could be the opposite. Maybe some of you ended relationships over the course of the past few weeks and few months, ended relationships or ended jobs or ended certain things. And maybe now all of a sudden God is talking to you at this eclipse and you realize, shoot, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I shouldn't have ended that relationship. Maybe I shouldn't have left that job. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I actually need that. Maybe I shouldn't, or maybe you overlooked something, right? Maybe I shouldn't overlook that thing from a few months ago, from last year. Maybe I actually need that. Maybe now I need to go back in order to smooth things over with that. That could be going on. That of course could be good, but then could frustrate you, that now you got to backtrack a little bit. And could also anger you a little bit too, that now you got to do all these things and you could not know the approach and could be confused. Why is God telling me this? And I thought I was reading all the signals right, and I guess I wasn't, could create a lot of stuff about that as well. That could be a little bit of a challenge. For some of you, what else could it be? For some of you, it could maybe be that you did something, maybe you bought something new into your life over the course of the past few weeks and maybe even few months. And maybe what is happening at this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius is that God and Spirit is telling you that you did the right thing. You did the right thing by making that move or changing this job or changing this relationship. But maybe now God is telling you to keep doing what you're doing, but to do it in a slightly different way. Keep the job, but see if you can get a promotion, or keep the job, but do this on the side. Maybe God is doing something like that. It's like maybe Spirit is whispering an addendum to you. You're on the right track, but maybe you need to tweak it a little bit or do it in a certain different kind of way that's going to take you in a little bit of a different direction. And so maybe that could also trigger some of you as well. Maybe not to the extremes as the other examples. Maybe not to the extreme anger and chaos and frustration as the others, but could definitely trigger you a little bit, that now it's a huge redirection that you have to go in, that could create a lot of uncertainty about like whether you're hearing God right and whether, a lot of things that are going on there. So that could also be something that could come up too. And because now Spirit is all of a sudden telling us things that we haven't heard in a while, that may be the opposite or turn a lot of things on our head that we once thought, right? To give you those examples, that can create a lot of chaos too. So maybe to put it in more practical terms, to show some of you the chaos that can come here, to circle back on my past example, think about, remember out of my past, 3 examples I gave you? I said something that could happen is that you could have gotten in a new relationship a few months ago and now God could tell you to get out of it. Well, how confusing is that? A relationship you just started, now you got to get out, or a relationship that a few months ago things was going well and now all of a sudden God's telling you to do something else. Do you see how that can create frustrations and arguments? Or it can be vice versa. You were getting out of a relationship and now you got to get back in with it. Do you see how confusing this can be? So I want to note that beware, this can sneak up on you, this energy, very quickly to get things out of hand. What else do I want to say too? I want to say too that as people are listening to God, to show you these examples, that as people are listening to God, that there can be a lot of mix-ups of the message of what's God saying. So to continue, I'll continue with the love example, because I think that's usually love is what hits our hearts the most and brings the most anger and frustration. Not that a job can't upset you. It definitely can. And money for sure can, but not quite like relationships. So to give you an example, what could happen, and to keep with that one, is that some of you may have started relationships over the course, anytime between like the end of last year and now. And all of a sudden at this new moon solar eclipse, God could be telling you to get out of that relationship. And some of you, what could happen, could act too soon before you're ready and tell someone very early on at this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius, I want this relationship to end. And then it could create a lot of drama that you were not ready to sustain. And that same person who got the message from God to leave the relationship could then pack out and be like, oh my gosh, I'm lying. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I would. Let's stay. Let's keep the relationship together. And then it'd be a whole mess, because then you're like, well, do you want to stay or do you want to leave the relationship? Do you see? And then what's going to happen is that a few weeks from now, around that full moon in Gemini, 2 weeks from now, the person's going to change their mind again and say, oh, you're right. This is really what God was telling me. God was really telling me to leave. I need to leave. So it's going to create a lot of weird situations like that, or vice versa. Someone didn't want to be in a relationship with you a few months ago or whatever, a year ago, and then all of a sudden they may come back and say, I do want to be in a relationship with you. God's telling me that, and then get freaked out at the fact that a relationship might start and then change their mind. Never mind, I don't want to be in a relationship with you. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, it's going to come out again. It's going to reverse, and it's going to be like, okay, this is really what God wants. But do you see there's going to be a little bit of a back and forth here that can be very chaotic. And again, because of that, to give you an example, even though that same situation can play out with money, jobs, finances, home, in a variety of different ways, because that is going on here, that's why there is such a need. There is such a need at this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius to slow things down so that you don't say something you're not prepared to stick to and to sustain yet, and that you're not sure is from God, and so that you don't get dragged into everyone else's uncertainty about their messages from God. You need to slow things down in order to figure things out. And you really won't figure things out, in my opinion, until probably at the very earliest that full moon in Gemini 2 weeks from now. And that's, what is that, like the 18th or something, the 17th, 18th? I'm not sure. It's around there. And that's when things will start to straighten out a little bit more, especially around the end of the month, the 28th, as Jupiter enters Pisces. Okay, the full moon in Gemini is Saturday, December 18th, 2021. Okay, so I think that's all that I have to say there. I hope that was clear. And if it wasn't clear, it's because there's a lot of static in the energy, in the wires and the radio right now with what's going on, especially in the frequency from us tuning in to a higher frequency, a higher power. You know, maybe that's the metaphor. Maybe that's the metaphor, because I do sometimes like to give you metaphors when they come up. I think maybe that's the metaphor for this solar eclipse, is that it's like static on the radio. A lot of people don't listen to radios anymore, I guess, but back in the day, when people used to listen to radios, you can tune into a station on a radio and you can get a mix of both stations. You can get the station you want to tune into and a station from another frequency. And because you kind of get both these stations at once, you get both messages, you know, two voices or two sounds, two music playing over each other, which can be confusing. And I think that that's what's happening this solar eclipse, is that we're tuning into a higher frequency, the frequency of God, spirit, soul, and universe that is talking to us. But even though it's talking to us, we also have the lower frequencies, the lower beliefs from our past also talking to us. And because they're both talking at the same time, there's some static where we aren't sure if what we're hearing clearly is what we're hearing clearly. And because there's all this static and confusion going on in our mind, and we have two things talking over, we may act too soon or do things we're not ready to do, or misinterpret God and create a lot of confusion, when really what we need to do is just wait. To not act at all until we're sure of what the message, and until the lower frequency is clear, and until the higher frequency becomes crystal clear, until the higher frequency gets into earshot in the way that it is that we need, where we're 100% sure of what's going on, and where God is 100% giving us the message, and where we're understanding what that is and moving forward in that way. Okay, so that's it. I hope that helps. Your card for this time period is the Page of, Your inside degree. Should I do it? Yeah, let me do your inside degree really quick. then I'll look at your card. I like to look at the inside degrees here in order to give a little bit more information on this new moon solar eclipse and another perspective that's not mine, so that you can get another voice here. The inside degrees were not written by me. They were written by someone else who channeled meanings for each of the degrees of the zodiac from spirit. Okay, this solar eclipse is at 12 degrees Sagittarius, and that is the one I like the best. So that's what we've got up on the screen. It says the soul timing, slow, informative, waiting for fullness and rightness. And this to me is a beautiful way to manage this energy. The way to work with this energy is not to force things. It is to wait for soul timing, for the right time, for God's time, for divine time, which is going to come very soon, I believe in the next few weeks. And to take the time to be slow, informative, to take the time to wait for all of this, okay? To wait for God to speak to us. And us taking the time, this is the right way to handle this eclipse. Us waiting for God's timing and for God's messages and for the clarity in the channel and in the radio for God to speak is going to help us to outlive old stuck patterns by slowly wearing them out. So us waiting for God to speak and to fully tune into God is not wasted time. It's not wasted time that nothing is right in our life. Us waiting to tune into God is helping us to outlive old things and to process things and to move on. But even though waiting, look at how the inside degree goes on. But even though we're waiting at this new moon solar eclipse for God to speak so that we can outlive old patterns, the old patterns are coming up strong, are coming up in a relentless way, making us act at cross purposes because we're very stubbornly attached to old things, but at the same time desperate to get beyond those things. So I love this inside degree a lot to me, and I think that's exactly what we're feeling. I'm just going to say that again. This solar eclipse, God is speaking to us, and a huge part of us loves that and wants to listen to God more and more and more about what God has for our life. But another part of us is still stuck in lower beliefs and lower frequencies that are not divine. And because part of us wants to hear God's truth, but another part of us in the divine truth of whatever that is, and another part of us doesn't, we're acting at cross purposes. And that's bringing a lot of frustration. And the older stuff that we're trying to let go of is really stubborn and is creating a lot of interior dialogues and disputes. That's quite the challenge that we're going to need to maneuver through skillfully in order to get to a place of breakthrough that it is that we might need. So I really like that one. I should also note too, I did like 11 degrees Sagittarius as well, if you want to look at that. But I'm not going to mention it here in this video because I think I've gone on for long enough. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about your cards. What do we have? We've got the Page of Swords upright and the Queen of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck upright. You know, I see the Queen of Pentacles to me, all to me, the queens are kind of motherly, but for some reason I see the Queen of Pentacles as being the most motherly, because to me the Pentacles is about practical reality and earth, and she kind of gives me a Mother Earth vibe, sometimes too, like the Empress does as well, but I see her that way, and I tend to think of the queens, which are feminine, and the motherly energy as being one that's more willing to wait and to take things slower and to be at peace. And so that's what I feel like the Queen of Pentacles is saying. We need to wait for things to gather rightness and wait for the Page of Swords. There's a need this time period to wait for clarity and to wait for things to calm down and to wait for absolute certainty, and not in what you're doing. This is not wait for absolute certainty in truth, but to wait for absolute certainty in God's truth. To wait for absolute certainty, not in what your physical reality looks like and not in what your logical mind is telling you, but what in your spiritual mind is telling you. To wait for absolute certainty in what you're hearing from God, and to wait for you to get on that full wavelength as God as well, because the Page of Swords has a lot to do with clarity. And look, he's even in the clouds, like he's in some kind of spiritual realm. So I think that's what I want to say here. Look, we've got the Queen of Swords next. We've got the two queens. here. So I'm feeling like that's the message of this moon. You know, God is going to require something of you very soon, I think, to change something in your life that's still not where it should be, to end something or to begin something or to rearrange something. But even though God's going to require you to change something in your life very soon, before you know what that is and before you take action on it, you need to calm down and be at peace and tune into God and be 100% certain that that's what God is saying, so that you don't jerk people around and that you don't jerk yourself around here, and so that you save yourself a lot of drama. Not that Spirit won't be able to help you overcome any drama that you create, because Spirit's hand is so heavily involved in the energy. Like, Spirit is going to help you even if you mess things up. This time, fix things a few weeks from now. But there's no need to create that extra drama when there's an easier path with less bumps and less rocks. And I think that that's the message here. God's going to require something of you very soon to fix your life, but before you act, be certain so that you aren't jerking people around, and take the time to be certain and to get used to it as you move forward. Okay, anything else that I want to say here? I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this is helpful for you. I hope that you all do the best out there that you can. This is a big deal and a bit of a challenge, but things should clear up soon. Hopefully the full moon in Gemini will help us a bit, where I'll talk to you then 2 weeks from now, full moon in Gemini. So thank you so much. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and I will talk to you on the next one.